Hare Krishna, everybody. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books. And I'm sitting here with a room full of the part of the burgeoning Kent Yatra here, the spreading of Krishna consciousness. Very wonderful. We have, a new initiate, Mukunda, who I haven't seen since his initiation by His Grace Prabhupada Prabhu in the manor, not that long ago. And he was just telling me how wonderful an experience it is, and I was remembering, I was taken back to my initiation day and how everything changed in an instant. And when that name came out, it was like, yeah. So that's Krishna consciousness. It's a transformational experience. It gives us a direct perception that we are something different than material machine. And the material energy is very strong, and it gives us the impression that that's what we are. And therefore it stymies us from searching and from seeking that thing about us that we know is right. And once you come into contact with pure devotee on the level of Srila Prabhupada and his sincere followers, then it becomes something not just theoretical anymore. It becomes real. And not plugged in yet?
Plugged in, but maybe Rati Manjari asked about it. I don't know if everything should be okay.
What did she ask about it?
She just said microphone question mark.
Well, maybe the microphone's tucked into my chin. Give it a break. Okay. Rati Manjari. And whenever anything is a little bit like this or that, she's on top of it. Sometimes it's right before it starts, so we get the reading in at least. Okay, Rati, how's that? Better? Maybe it's just my voice because I just used it up yesterday. I got not much left over. Do you hear it? Are you checking it? Huh? Couple of thumbs up. Here we go again. Let's try again. I'm not going to repeat what I just said. We're here with some lovely devotees from the burgeoning Kent Yatra. And yesterday, I used my voice to the point where it barely works. So everybody just be patient and give me your love and mercy so that it will come to life. We reached a very interesting chapter in the 10th canto. We're going to hear all about just how God is all-powerful. But before we do, we're going to read, as we always do every day, recite the verse or the verses which make up the 107th obeisance that Srila Sanatana Goswami offered to the Srimad-Bhagavatam, to the Krishna, the Vrindavan Leela of Krishna's pastimes. And it's called Srimad-Bhagavata Mahima Stotram. And it goes like this. It's a great meditation, the most beautiful glorification of the Bhagavatam that I've ever heard, anyway. And it goes like this. Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabho Kalidvandodita Ditya Shri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshakshadayate Sarvada Savasevyaya Shri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madguro Man Mahadana Mannishtadaka Madbhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu saduta dayin atini chochatakara hanamuncha gadachin mam premna rit kantayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, Narada Muni, we've reached the 10th canto, chapter 69. Narada Muni visits Lord Krishna's palaces in Dvaraka. This chapter relates how Narada Muni was amazed to see the household pastimes of Lord Sri Krishna and how he offered prayers to the Lord. After killing the demon Naraka, Lord Krishna had simultaneously married 16,000 maidens. And sage Narada wanted to observe the Lord's diverse activities in this unique family situation. Thus he went to Dvaraka. Narada entered one of the 16,000 palaces and saw goddess Rukmini personally rendering menial service to Sri Krishna, despite her being in the company of thousands of maidservants. As soon as Lord Krishna noticed Narada, he got up from his bed, offered obeisances to the sage, and seated him on his own seat. Then the Lord bathed Narada's feet and sprinkled the water on his own head. Such was the exemplary behavior of the Lord. After conversing with the Lord for a short while, Narada went to another of his palaces, where the sage saw Sri Krishna playing at dice with his queen in Uddhava. Going from there to another palace, he found Lord Krishna coddling his infant children. In another palace, he saw him preparing to take a bath. In another, performing fire sacrifices. In another, feeding brahmanas. And in another, eating the remnants left by brahmanas. In one palace, the Lord was performing noontime rituals. In another, quietly chanting the Gayatri mantra. In another, sleeping on his bed. In another, consulting with his ministers. And in yet another, playing in the water with his female companions. Somewhere the Lord was giving charity to brahmanas. In another place he was joking and laughing with his consort. In yet another place he was meditating on the Supersoul. Somewhere he was serving his spiritual masters. In another place he was arranging for the marriages of his sons and daughters. Somewhere else he was going out to hunt animals, and elsewhere he was moving about in disguise to find out what the citizens were thinking. Having seen all this, Narada addressed Lord Krishna. Only because I have served your lotus feet can I understand these varieties of your Yogamaya potency, which ordinary living beings, bewildered by illusion, cannot begin to perceive. Thus I am most fortunate, and I simply desire to travel all over the three worlds, chanting the glories of your pastimes, which purify all the worlds. Sri Krishna asked Narada not to be confused by his vision of the Lord's transcendental opulences, and he described to him the purposes of his appearances in this world. Then he honored the sage properly, according to religious principles, and Narada departed, continuously meditating on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Texts 1 through 6. Shukadeva Goswami said, hearing that Lord Krishna had killed Narakasura and had alone married many brides, Narada Muni desired to see the Lord in this situation. He thought, it is quite amazing that in a single body, Lord Krishna simultaneously married 16,000 women, each in a separate palace. Thus the sage of the demigods eagerly went to Dvaraka. The city was filled with the sounds of birds and bees flying about the parks and pleasure gardens, while its lakes, crowded with blooming Indivira, Amboja, Kalara, Kamuda, and Utpala lotuses, resounded with the calls of swans and cranes. Dvaraka boasted 900,000 royal palaces, all constructed with crystal and silver, and splendorously decorated with huge emeralds. Inside these palaces, the furnishings were bedecked with gold and jewels. Traffic moved along the well-laid-out system of boulevards, roads, intersections, and marketplaces, and many assembly houses and temples of demigods graced the charming city. The roads, courtyards, commercial streets, and residential patios were all sprinkled with water and shaded from the sun's heat by banners waving from flagpoles. Purport. In Krishna, Srila Prabhupada beautifully describes the city of Dvaraka as follows. Being inquisitive as to how Krishna was managing his household affairs with so many wives, Narada desired to see these pastimes and so set out to visit Krishna's different homes. When Narada arrived in Dvaraka, he saw gardens and parks full of various flowers of different colors, and also orchards overloaded with a variety of fruits. Beautiful birds were chirping, and peacocks crowed delightfully. There were ponds full of blue and red lotus flowers, and some of these ponds were filled with varieties of lilies. The lakes were full of nice swans and cranes, and the voices of these birds resounded everywhere. In the city, there were as many as 900,000 great palaces built of first-class marble, with gates and doors made of silver. The pillars of the houses and palaces were bedecked with jewels, such as touchstone, sapphire, and emerald, and the floors gave off a beautiful luster. The highways, lanes, streets, crossings, and marketplaces were all beautifully decorated. The whole city was full of residential homes, assembly houses, and temples, all of different architectural beauty. All of this made Dvaraka a glowing city. The big avenues, crossings, lanes, and streets, and also the thresholds of every residential house were very clean. On both sides of every path there were bushes, and at regular intervals there were large trees that shaded the avenues so that the sunshine would not bother the passers-by. Nice place to go, huh? Why not? Text 7 and 8. In the city of Dvaraka was a beautiful private quarter worshipped by the planetary rulers. This district, where the demigod Vishwakarma had shown all his divine skill, was the residential area of Lord Hari. and thus it was gorgeously decorated by the 16,000 palaces of Lord Krishna's queens. Narada Muni entered one of these immense palaces. Purport. Srila Jiva Goswami points out that Twashta, Vishwakarma, manifested the expertise of the Supreme Lord, and thus he was able to build such exquisite palaces. Srila Prabhupada writes, the great kings and princes of the world used to visit these palaces just to worship Lord Krishna. The architectural plans were made personally by Vishwakarma, the engineer of the demigods, and the construction of the palaces. And in the construction of the palaces, he exhibited all his talents and ingenuity. 9 to 12. Supporting the palace were coral pillars, decoratively inlaid with Vaidurya gems. Sapphires bedecked the walls, and the floors glowed with perpetual brilliance. In that palace, Twashta had arranged canopies with hanging strands of pearls. There were also seats and beds fashioned of ivory and precious jewels. In attendance were many well-dressed maidservants bearing lockets on their necks, and also armor-cladded guards, turbans, fine uniforms, and jeweled earrings. The glow of numerous jewel-studded lamps dispelled all darkness in the palace. My dear king, on the ornate ridges of the roof danced loudly crying peacocks, who saw the fragrant aguru, incense, escaping through the holes of the latticed windows and mistook it for a cloud. Purport. Srila Prabhupada writes, there was so much incense and fragrant gum burning in that the scented fumes were coming out of the windows. The peacocks became illusioned by the fumes, mistaking them for clouds, and began dancing jubilantly. There were many maidservants, all of whom were decorated with gold necklaces, bangles, and beautiful saris. There were also many male servants who were nicely decorated in coats and turbans and jeweled earrings. Beautiful as they were, the servants were all engaged in different household duties. Text 13.
Yes.
In that palace, you interested? In that palace, the learned Brahmana saw the Lord of the Sattvatas, Sri Krishna, together with his wife, who fanned him with a gold-handled yak-tail fan. She personally served him in this way, even though she was constantly attended by 1,000 maidservants, equal to her in personal character, beauty, youth, and fine dress. 14. The Supreme Lord is the greatest upholder of religious principles. Thus, when he noticed Narada, he rose at once from Goddess Sri's bed, bowed his crowned head at Narada's feet, and joining in his palms, had the sage sit in his own seat. 15. The Lord bathed Narada's feet, and then put the water on his head, on his own head. Although Lord Krishna is the supreme spiritual authority of the universe and the master of his devotees, it was proper for him to behave in this way, for his name is Brahmanya Deva, the Lord who favors the Brahmanas. Thus Sri Krishna honored the sage Narada by bathing his feet, even though the water that bathes the Lord's own feet becomes the Ganges, the ultimate holy shrine. Purport. Since Lord Krishna's own feet are the source of the most holy Ganges, the Lord did not have to purify himself by bathing Narada Muni's feet. Rather, as Srila Prabhupada explains, Lord Krishna in Dvaraka enjoyed the pastimes of a perfect human being. When, therefore, he washed the feet of the sage, Narada, and took the water on his head, Narada did not object, knowing well that the Lord did so to teach everyone how to respect saintly persons. 16. After fully worshipping the great sage of the demigods according to Vedic injunctions, Lord Krishna, who is himself the original sage, Narayana, the friend of Nara, conversed with Narada, and the Lord's measured speech was as sweet as nectar. Finally, the Lord asked Narada, "What may we do for you, our Lord and Master?" Purport. In this verse, the words Narayano Narasakha indicate that Krishna is himself the Supreme Lord, Narayana, who appeared as the friend of the sage Nara. In other words, Lord Krishna is Rishi Purana, the original and supreme spiritual master. Nevertheless, following the Vedic injunctions, Vinoditena, that a Kshatriya should worship the Brahmanas, Lord Krishna happily worshipped his pure devotee, Narada Muni. Text 17. There's many places in the Bhagavatam and other scriptures that describe how Krishna becomes the follower of his devotees. They're so dear to him, especially those who take responsibility for helping conditioned souls to come back to him. So he becomes, they become dear to him as he is dear to them. 17. Sri Narada said, "O Almighty Lord, it is no surprise that you, the ruler of all worlds, show friendship for all people and yet subdue the envious. As we well know, you descend by your sweet will in order to bestow the highest good on this universe by maintaining it and protecting it. Thus your glories are widely sung." Purport. As pointed out by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti, all living beings are in fact servants of the Lord. The Acharya quotes the following verse from the Padma Purana to elucidate. Karinochite Vishnu Shrir U Karina Katyate Makaras Tutayor Dasa Panchavingshat Prakirtitaha. In the mantra Om, the letter A signifies Lord Vishnu, the letter U signifies the goddess Shri, and the letter M refers to their servant, who is the 25th element. The 25th element is the jiva, the living being. Every living being is a servant of the Lord, and the Lord is the true friend of every living being. Thus, even when the Lord chastises envious persons like Jarasandha, such punishment amounts to real friendship, since both the Lord's chastisement and his blessings are for the benefit of the living being. Text 18. Now I have seen your feet, which grant liberation to your devotees, which even Lord Brahma and other great personalities of unfathomable intelligence can only meditate upon within their hearts, in which those who have fallen into the well of material existence resort to for deliverance. Please favor me so that I may constantly think of you as I travel about. Please grant me the power to remember you. Purport. Lord Krishna had asked Narada Muni, "What can we do for you?" And here Narada answers. Narada Muni is a pure devotee of Lord Krishna, and thus his request is sublime. Text 19. Narada then entered the palace of another of Lord Krishna's wives. My dear king, he was eager to witness the spiritual potency possessed by the master of all masters of mystic power. 2022. There he saw the Lord playing at dice with his beloved consort and his friend Uddhava. Lord Krishna worshipped Narada by standing up, offering him a seat, and so on. And then, as if he did not know, asked him, "When did you arrive? What can needy persons like us do for those who are full of them in themselves? In any case, my dear Brahmana, please make my life auspicious." Thus addressed, Narada was astonished. He simply stood up and silently went to another palace. Purport. In Krishna, Srila Prabhupada explains that when Narada arrived at the second palace, Lord Krishna acted as if he did not know what had happened in the palace of Rukmini. Narada understood that Lord Krishna was simultaneously present in both palaces, performing different activities. So he simply left the palace silently in great astonishment over the Lord's activities. 23. This time, Naradaji saw that Lord Krishna was engaged as an affectionate father, petting his small children. From there he entered another palace and saw Lord Krishna preparing to take his bath. Purport. This translation is from Srila Prabhupada's Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti comments that in virtually all the palaces Narada visited, Lord Krishna worshipped and honored him. It's inconceivable. 24. In one palace, the Lord was offering oblations into the sacrificial fires. In another, worshipping through the 5 Mahayagyas. In another, feeding brahmanas. And in yet another, eating the remnants of food left by brahmanas. Purport. The 5 Mahayagyas, or great sacrifices, are defined as follows. Pato homash chatitinam saparya tarpanam balihi. Reciting the Vedas, offering oblations into the sacrificial fire, waiting on guests, making offerings to the forefathers, and offering a share of one's food to living entities in general. Srila Prabhupada comments as follows on these sacrifices. In another palace, Krishna was found performing the Panchayagya sacrifice, which is compulsory for a householder. This yagya is also known as Panchasuna. Knowingly or unknowingly, everyone, specifically the householder, is committing 5 kinds of sinful activities. When we receive water from a water pitcher, we kill many germs that are in it. Similarly, when we use a grinding machine or take foodstuffs, we kill many germs. When sweeping the floor or igniting fire, we kill many germs. And when we walk on the street, we kill many ants and other insects. Consciously or unconsciously, in all our different activities, we're killing. Therefore, it is incumbent upon every householder to perform the Panchasuna sacrifice to rid himself of the reactions to such sinful activities. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti, in his commentary on this verse, again points out that all the different times of the day were occurring simultaneously in Lord Krishna's palaces. Thus Narada saw a fire sacrifice, a morning ritual, and at about the same time he saw Lord Krishna feeding the brahmanas and accepting their remnants, a noontime activity. 25. Somewhere Lord Krishna was observing the rituals for worship at sunset by refraining from speech and quietly chanting the Gayatri mantra. And elsewhere he was moving about with sword and shield in the areas set aside for sword practice. Purport. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti, the word sandhyam upasinam indicate sunset rituals, whereas the words asicharmabhyam chadantam refer to sword practice, which takes place at dawn. 26. In one place, Lord Gadagraja was riding on horses, elephants, and chariots, and in another place he was resting on his bed while bards recited his glories. Purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti points out that riding on horses and elephants is a noon activity, whereas one lies down during the latter part of the night. 27. Somewhere he was consulting with royal ministers like Uddhava, and somewhere else he was enjoying in the water surrounded by many society girls and other young women. Purport. This translation is based on Srila Prabhupada's Krishna. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti, Lord Krishna met with his counselors around dusk and enjoyed water sports in the afternoon. Text 28. Somewhere he was giving well-decorated cows to exalted brahmanas, and elsewhere he was listening to the auspicious narration of epic histories and Puranas. Purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti informs us that giving cows in charity occurs in the morning, while hearing the histories takes place in the afternoon. 29. Somewhere Lord Krishna was found enjoying the company of a particular wife by exchanging joking words with her. Somewhere else he was found engaged along with his wife in religious ritualistic functions. Somewhere Krishna was found engaged in matters of economic development, and somewhere else he was found enjoying family life according to the regular principles of the Shastras. Purport. This translation is based on Srila Prabhupada's Krishna. Joking conversations take place during the nighttime, whereas religious rituals, economic development, and family enjoyment occur during both the day and the night. 30. Somewhere he was sitting alone, meditating on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is transcendental to material nature, and somewhere he was rendering menial service to his elders, offering them desirable things and reverential worship. Purport. Srila Prabhupada comments, meditation, as recommended in authorized scripture, is meant for concentrating one's mind on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. Lord Krishna is himself the original Vishnu, but because he played the part of a human being, he taught us definitely by his personal behavior what is meant by meditation. The activity of meditation indicates the Brahma Muhurta, the early morning hours before sunrise. Text 31. In one place he was planning battles in consultation with some of his advisors. In another place he was making peace. Somewhere Lord Keshava and Lord Balaram were together pondering the welfare of the pious. 32. Narada saw Lord Krishna engaged in getting his sons and daughters married to suitable brides and bridegrooms at the appropriate time, and the marriage ceremonies were being performed with great pomp. 33. Narada observed how Sri Krishna, the master of all yoga masters, arranged to send away his daughters and sons-in-law, and also to receive them home again at the time of great holiday celebrations. All the citizens were astonished to see these celebrations. 34. Somewhere he was worshipping all the demigods with elaborate sacrifices, and elsewhere he was fulfilling his religious obligations by doing public welfare work, such as the construction of wells, public parks, and monasteries. Text 35. In another place he was on hunting expedition, mounting on his Sindhi horse and accompanied by the most heroic of the Yadus. He was killing animals meant for offering and sacrifice. Purport. Srila Prabhupada comments, according to Vedic regulations, the Kshatriyas were allowed to kill prescribed animals on certain occasions, either to maintain peace in the forests or to offer the animals in the sacrificial fire. Kshatriyas are allowed to practice this killing art because they have to kill their enemies mercilessly to maintain peace in society. Text 36. Somewhere Krishna, the Lord of mystic power, was moving about in disguise among the homes of ministers and other citizens in order to understand what each of them was thinking. Purport. Although Lord Krishna is all-knowing, while executing his pastimes as a typical monarch, he sometimes traveled about incognito to acquire necessary information about his kingdom. Text 37. Having thus seen this display of the Lord's Yogamaya, Narada mildly laughed and then addressed Lord Rishikesha, who was adopting the behavior of a human being. Purport. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti, Narada fully understood the Lord's omniscience, and thus when he saw the Lord trying to find out the mood of his ministers, moving about in disguise, Narada could not help laughing. But remembering the Lord's supreme position, he was somewhat constrained in his laughter. Text 38. Narada said, "Now we understand your mystic potencies, which are difficult to comprehend, even for great mystics. O Supreme Soul, Master of all mystic power, only by serving your feet have I been able to perceive your powers." Purport. According to the Acharyas, this verse indicates that even great mystics like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva cannot fully comprehend the mystic power of the Supreme Lord. Text 39. O Lord, please give me your leave. I will wander about the worlds which are flooded with your fame, loudly singing about your pastimes which purify the universe. Purport. Even Narada Muni was bewildered to see Lord Krishna's amazing pastimes as a human being. Therefore, with the words Anujanihi Mam Deva, he requests permission to return to his normal service of traveling and preaching. Inspired by what he has seen, he wants to preach widely the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Text 40. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "O Brahmana, I am the speaker of religion, its performer and sanctioner. I observe religious principles to teach them to the world. My child, so do not be disturbed." Purport. Srila Jiva Goswami explains that Lord Krishna wanted to dispel Narada's distress, which the sage felt because he saw Lord Krishna worshipping the demigods and even Narada himself. Srila Vishwanath Chakrabarti explains Lord Krishna's feelings as follows. As I state in the Bhagavad Gita, Yad Yad Acharite Shreshtas Tat Tadeva Tado Janaha. Whatever a great person does, ordinary people follow. Thus I bathed your feet today in order to help propagate the principles of religion. In the past, before I began my pastimes of directly teaching religious principles, you came and offered prayers to me after I had killed the Keshi demon. But I simply listened to your elaborate prayers and glorification and did nothing to honor you. Just remember this and consider. Do you think that you have committed an offense by allowing me to bathe your feet today? Do not think, sorry, I misspoke. Do not think that you have committed an offense by allowing me to bathe your feet today and accept the water as holy remnants. Just as a son does not offend his father by touching him with his foot while sitting on the father's lap, so you should understand that in the same way, my son, you have not offended me. Text 41. Shukadeva Goswami said, thus, in every place, Narada saw the Lord in his same personal form, executing the transcendental principles of religion that purify those engaged in household affairs. Purport. In this verse, Shukadeva Goswami repeats what the Lord has himself explained. As Srila Prabhupada writes in Krsna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead was engaged in his so-called household affairs in order to teach people how one can sanctify one's household life, although he may be attached to the imprisonment of material existence. Actually, one is obliged to continue the term of material existence because of household life. But the Lord, being very kind upon householders, demonstrated the path of sanctifying ordinary household life. Because Krishna is the center of all activities, the life of a Krishna-conscious householder is transcendental to Vedic injunctions and is automatically sanctified. As stated in text 2 of this chapter, all the Lord's activities in the many palaces were performed by the Lord's single spiritual form, Ekena Vapusha, which manifested in many places at once. This vision was revealed to Narada because of his desire to see it, and the Lord's desire to show it to him. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti points out that the other residents of Dvaraka could see Krishna only in a particular part of the city they themselves occupied, and not anywhere else, even if they would sometimes go to another precinct on some business. Thus the Lord gave a special view of his pastimes to his beloved devotee, Narada Muni. If you want to see these kinds of things, you have to become a very special devotee. Text 42. Having repeatedly seen the vast mystic display of Lord Krishna, whose power is unlimited, the sage was amazed and filled with wonder. Text 43. Lord Krishna greatly honored Narada, faithfully presenting him with gifts related to economic prosperity, sense gratification, and religious duties. Thus, fully satisfied, the sage departed, constantly remembering the Lord. Purport. As Srila Prabhupada points out in Krishna, the phrase Artakama Dharmeshu indicates that Lord Krishna was behaving like an ordinary householder deeply concerned with economic development, sense gratification, and religious duties. Narada could understand the Lord's purpose, and he was most pleased by Sri Krishna's exemplary behavior. Thus, fully enlivened in his pure Krishna consciousness, he departed. Text 44. In this way, Lord Narayana imitated the ways of ordinary humans, manifesting his divine potencies for the benefit of all beings. Thus, he enjoyed, dear king, in the company of his 16,000 exalted consorts, who served the Lord with their shy, affectionate glances and laughter. 45. Lord Hari is the ultimate cause of universal creation, maintenance, and destruction, My dear king, anyone who chants about, hears about, or simply appreciates the extraordinary activities he performed in this world, which are impossible to imitate, will surely develop devotion for the Supreme Lord, the bestower of liberation. Mukunda. Purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti has given various meanings for the word Ananya Vishayani. This term may indicate that the Lord performed activities in Dvaraka that were unusual even for his plenary expansions, to say nothing of others. Or the term can be understood to indicate that the Lord performed these activities for the sake of his pure, exclusive devotees. In any case, one who recites or hears accounts of these pastimes will certainly be engaged in Krishna consciousness. As Srila Prabhupada writes, certainly find it very easy to traverse the path of liberation and taste the nectar of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. Srila Prabhupada further points out that the word anumodite here indicates that one who supports a preacher of the Krishna consciousness movement will also receive the benefits mentioned here. Thus end the purports of the humble servants of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, to the 10th canto, 69th chapter of Srimad-Bhagavatam, entitled Narada Muni visits Lord Krishna's palaces in Dvaraka. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Krishna. Well done, sir. Well done. Haribol. Haribol. So, I think we'll stop there because this is a wonderful chapter and there's lots and lots of things to consider and reflect on and try to understand. So we'll stop here for the reading and we'll turn our program over to the open mic, as we call it, the open mic section of our program, where anyone who has something that's stuck in the mind during the reading, and there was lots of things that were sticking in my mind, I don't know about you, but it was so incredible this past time. Okay, the ball is in your court. Abhaya Prabhu has the mic ready for your reflections or your consideration and discussion or questions or whatever happens to come out. Yes, Bhakti Sep, he gets started off.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Our local inventor, the ingenuity.
I guess it's more of a reflection than a question, maybe a bit of both. I couldn't help wondering, what would it be like for Narada Muni or any sage or brahmana to be worshipped so humbly by Krishna?
Well, I think it hinted, Prabhupada hinted at it in one of the purports and in the verse, and that was that Narada is so exalted that he can actually understand that Krishna is doing that to show others how to treat an exalted person. And so he surrenders. It takes surrender to do that. Because, when I went to India, my mom taught me that I say thank you to everybody about everything. And when I started doing that in India, everybody would say, no, you can't do that. You can't, don't say thank you. Because they had this sense that I was a saintly person coming to their home and they just couldn't handle it because they were too materialistic. But here's Narada Muni Krishna explaining to human society by showing, by his own personal example, how to treat a saintly person. And Narada Muni is showing the example of how an exalted person responds to such a thing. I remember the first time that when I started to initiate many years ago, the first time I had to tolerate being worshipped, it was so hard for me. I almost ran out the door.
That's all I could do. I had to like hold on to things, you know. It's kind of like getting ready to leave your body or something. I just held on and just tolerated while it was going on. That's how I felt. And then over time, when I understood that that was false ego speaking, I began to thank the persons for for doing this. And they kind of got the idea that that was okay. And then it turned out to be okay. I could not just tolerate it, but the atmosphere became enriched and it became sweet. Just like when we hear these things, just by hearing together what is the capability of the Supreme Absolute Truth, it takes up it uplifts us and allows us to see, more than just the mundane, ordinary, carnal, animalistic, way that people treat one another. Human beings nowadays treat one another, and it's important. It's essential that Krishna do that. There's a nice verse in the 3rd chapter of the Gita where Krishna says, "I don't have any duties to perform. I'm not attached to the fruits of. I don't need anything." And those persons who actually understand that about me, namam karmani limpanti, name karma palespriha, iti mam yo bijanati. If those who know that about me, not karma not nabhadyate, karma virna nabhadyate, they don't become caught and bound by material energy. That's the reason. And then he says, for if I didn't perform prescribed duties, because he says then, name partastit kartavya, trishu kinchanu bhojana. I can't remember the Sanskrit. Anyway, it means that if I didn't perform prescribed duties, even though I don't have to, I would mislead people. Because what great people do, followers do. Now, it may be that a person's in a great position and he's not acting like a great person, but because he's in that position, people follow. It's the nature of this material existence. There was once a journalist who went to cover Hitler before he started, going out and hacking other countries, plundering and all that stuff that he did, killing. He was just building up his strength. And people knew that he was becoming strong, but they didn't know how demoniac he was. So he went to cover it. So he was like in this big street, and there were people lined up like many, 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 depths on each side of the street. And here he came, in that cavalcade that he used to do, with riding in that, I don't know, an open car or something. And he was there, and he started to hear this, and he felt himself going there to worship this person. The influence of that atmosphere was so powerful. And he was very intelligent. He just said, okay, I know enough now, and he just left. He didn't get caught up in it. But he witnessed, and he wrote an article about it, the effect of groupthink taken to the nth degree of intensity. And look what happened, look what ended up happening. And now it's going on. And in the democratic societies, it's happening that you would think. I read an article by something Sullivan. Don't remember his first name. He's a writer for the New York Magazine, very elevated writer. Well, relatively good writer. I won't say elevated, good writer. And he wrote an article about democracy. I was curious because I'm a writer and speaker, so I like to read good writers because you learn, teacher, you're a teacher. You learn how to read nicely and write nicely by reading good writers, reading nice things. So I was reading, and at first it sounded just like Prabhupada's analysis of democracy, about how it gets to be over the top, where everybody has their opinion and anybody can become the leader if they did the right thing and played the right cards and all those things and got powerful enough to get all the votes. And one would think it sounded like it was going to go to anarchy, because everyone's got their own vote, everyone has their own idea, and it just naturally seemed to flow to anarchy. But interestingly, in the middle of the article, it turned and it went to tyranny. And his thought was that it does so because people need to be led. That's why even in this country, even though the monarchy is just a kind of a symbol now, but when there's one of these rituals where the people come out and they like it, because that's human society, that's human nature. So, so Krishna, he comes and acts like a perfect human being, and he does it in such a way that nobody else could even think about doing it. And he acts in the same way, and the rest of that series of verses in the 3rd chapter, it keeps going, and it says, "For if I was not to perform prescribed duties, I would be responsible for the degradation of human society. I would be the cause of unwanted population." And then he says, "Shakya karmanya bidbangso yata kurvanti bharata koryad bidbangs tata shaktis chakirshur lokasangraham." He said, a person who's attached may act a certain way, and a person who's not attached may act in the same way in order to teach others how to act. So that's what Krishna is doing here. But the interesting thing I thought, I'll just give my reflection, the interesting I thought was how it was that Narada could see it all at the same, every time he went, he saw that it was Krishna, expanding himself, but not doing the same thing, like a photograph, like a monitor of so many forms doing, but the same thing. The yogis can do this to a certain number of times, like 8 or 9 times. If they're perfect, they can be a few places at once, but they have to be doing the same thing that the original form is, like a mirror or a TV, projection on the screen. But Krishna's actually doing that, but doing different things in each place, which is completely against the laws of nature. And in this way, he shows us, by practical example, that he is above the laws of nature, and he is the controller of the laws of nature. And therefore, to teach us that if we want to be anything, we require his patronage, his blessings, and the intelligence and memory, and even the forgetfulness. If we want to, you can't even forget him unless he gives you that power to forget. So by his power of forgetfulness, he doesn't allow the other people who are living in the city to see him like that, so that he can be a human being or act like a human being. But Narada, because of his special qualifications and the inspiration that he got, I was thinking also while we were reading that part, that actually when we sit here and hear these pastimes, if we do it properly, and we actually have faith, and the faith increases when we hear it, then we will feel different. And when we go out, we'll feel like spreading that. Give somebody else a book. Listen to this. You've never heard anything like this before. turning people on, as we used to say in the old days, late 60s and early 70s in America and other places. Hare Krishna. Yes, Mukunda, liberate us, please.
Hare
O
Krishna.
servant of Mukunda, rather.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Mukunda.
Krishna. Maharaj, I was just interested to know, perhaps you could say something on the passage where it's, I'll read, I noted it down, it says here, Lord Krishna is all-knowing while executing his pastimes as a typical monarch. He sometimes travelled about incognito to acquire necessary information about his kingdom. Maharaj, I wonder whether you could just say something to enlighten me a little bit more on that.
Ramachandra did that, remember? When I was in Spain, the king was more active. This was back in the 80s. And he used to do that. He used to disguise himself, go out on a motorcycle, and just drive around and find out what the people were doing, what they were saying. You know, I mean, this is a perverted reflection, of course. Krishna didn't need to do that because he knows everything. But try to understand that Krishna's pastimes are so inconceivable that he gives permission to Yogamaya to cause him to forget. Sometimes he forgets who he is while he's doing all these things. Just so that he can relish doing that. Because he's unlimited. He's unlimited. Whatever he does it unlimitedly. So he takes pleasure. Just like there's a verse that describes, you know, that when Mother Yashoda brings her stick out, says, you better be a good boy or else. And he, you know, kind of, you know, gets frayed and runs around and tries to escape. And it gives him tremendous transcendental pleasure, you know, to be treated like that, out of love, out of pure love. So this is a little different. The king, he's not like, that's not the same mellow or the same rasa, but it's similar in principle. It gives him an opportunity to go out and see how the common man are living, and, you know, and sometimes he hears them saying things about him, and then he has to decide, you know, whether to change what he's doing or not. Like when Lord Ramachandra did that, and he heard some person talking to his wife, lower class person talking to his wife. I'm not going to be like Lord Ramachandra and, you know, allow you to, you know, go out and be in another man's house and then come back and be with me. I mean, we're not going to act like that. And then Ramachandra said, oh, they were losing faith. And therefore he sent Sita away, which is inconceivable. Of course, this is pastime. You know, she came out of the ground. You know that? She came out of the ground, yeah, when Janak was doing a sacrifice and he was tilling with the golden plow and to do the sacrifice, and Sita came out of the ground. The earth came out of the earth. And when she went into exile, you know, after she had his sons, she went back into the earth. Of course, to meet up with him. Not that she ever dies or anything like that, but these things go on so that human beings can have something to talk about that's real. That's ultimately what it is, to give us something to talk about that's real.
Yeah, because it's very interesting, Maharaj, because of course Because Krishna, of course, knows everything, knows it dwells within the heart of every living entity, every living being. So this is purely for Krishna's amusement, Krishna's entertainment.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what a pastime means.
Yeah.
That's what Leela means.
Yeah.
Like little children, before they're 5 years old, they don't have to go to school. They don't have to do anything, actually. The parents just like coddle them and give them all facility and give them something to stop them from crying. And they all act the same. It's mystical. And even in other species of life, the little kitties, the little kittens and puppies and everything, they play around, and the mother and father will play with them, and it's the same. And they don't have to do anything, but they're always doing something. They don't have to do anything, but they just do things. Okay, you're the cop, I'm the robber. I look like this, you look like that, and I'm doing this, and you're doing that. Yeah, okay. And they just get into this whole, fantasy world, but they have fun. And then because how you have the fun when the mother says, okay, it's time to come. No, we can't go. They're so absorbed in their childish play that they're and Krishna would do that with Balaram and his coward boyfriends. They'd be playing so much. Your mother Yashoda would say, no, Rohini would come out and say, okay, it's time to come home now. I don't think so. They just keep playing. Then finally, Mother Rohini said, I can't do this. Then she'd bring Yashoda. Yashoda would say, come on now. No, I don't think. And then she would say, look, Nanda Maharaj, your father, is sitting there waiting to eat lunch. And he won't eat lunch unless you come. Really? Well, okay. And then it breaks their, play, and then they go and take lunch. Or it's planned out that the demons that came to kill Krishna would come just before lunch, because they would get so absorbed in playing, they needed to stop and have lunch. So the demon would come just at the right time. So Krishna would break the play, kill the demon, and then they'd say, hey, a little hungry, aren't we? Oh yeah, let's take lunch. And then they would take lunch. And then usually about 2 times a day, and when it was time to go home, so they could remember, then another demon would come, and Krishna would kill that demon. Oh yeah, okay, it's time to go home now, and then they'd go home. And then when they got home, there was a whole festival, like Janmashtami or these big festivals we have. It's like that every day in Goloka Vrindavan. Mother Yashoda, Nanda Maharaj and some of the gopis, they walk Krishna to the gate, to the edge of the forest. They can't bear to be separated from him. And so then he has to stand there, and his mother comes and does his mothers do to make sure he's got his hanky and his flutes in the right place, and talismans against evil are in the right place, and everything. Then he says, okay, Mom, okay, so that's enough. We have to go now. The cows are waiting, my friend's waiting. She goes, okay, and then she starts to go back. Then she comes back again, and she has some sweet. You eat this, you're going to get tired. You need this energy. And Chris, okay. Then she starts to come back, and then she again it comes back and tries to do. This goes on for a long time, and Krishna's going like this. God, coward boys are out there like just raring to go, and then finally Krishna says, okay, look, who's going to take care of organizing things for when I come back? You have to do that. That's your duty. Oh yeah, that's right. Then they let him go. And it's like when they go out, the acharyas describe it, it's like there's a slingshot, and when they let go, they just go running out and playing and jumping and singing and dancing and, And like you said, in that way Krishna enjoys. He enjoys like more than anybody else can, because he's the supreme enjoyer. And the personalities that are there with him while he's enjoying, they taste just like we're tasting. I mean, I've noticed the last few days, we finished the whole Bhagavad Gita, and we were all sitting there, and we were in another world. nobody even thought to get up and to go. We were just relishing being in that atmosphere, being with Krishna, to hear Krishna's explanation of everything. If you hear the Gita all the way through, you just learn about everything. And if you do it all at once with other devotees, it's amazing. It's an amazing experience. So this is Krishna consciousness. This is what Krishna consciousness means. To find out, to become eager to know more about the absolute truth, and to be absorbed and get attached. Like we're so busy becoming attached and unattached and attached and unattached, because the material nature is always playing with us and changing, and we don't want it to change, but it changes anyway, and we're always trying to adjust to try to stay sane in this world. So Krishna's showing, what it's like in the spiritual world. He has the capabilities of being with everyone simultaneously in a way that you think he's only with you. He can do that. So we don't have to worry about it being neglected, because there's like 5 trillion of us up there. How's Krishna going to, how long am I going to have to wait, to be with Krishna? And then he shows us, no, don't worry. And he expands himself 16,000 forms and marries 16,000 girls and 16,000 palaces, and does different things with them in each one. And Narada Muni is just, okay. I mean, to hear it and to understand it and to accept that it really is like that, he really does that, that opens up our hearts and our intelligence and our everything. It gives us a spiritual experience. Ladies, anything from the ladies' side? Yes, Michelle.
Hare Krishna, dear Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
I was just wondering, if Narada is such an exalted person, did Krishna show him all of these so many different pastimes so he could believe more, like how what a great personality Krishna is?
Well, it gives him material
to preach.
Yeah.
Because if you see something with your own eyes, you can yourself convey that message a lot easier.
Yeah. Sure. Why not? That's why he comes to the earth. There's so many sages and people, or even ignorant people, arguing about whether God exists or not, whether there is an absolute truth, even though one of them saying, yes, there is, and the other one saying, no, there's not. But the subject matter is the same. So how can you be arguing that there isn't something that's the only thing that people argue about? Not the only thing, but people are always arguing about in the history of the universe. So Krishna comes and shows himself.
I was just wondering if he needed to show himself in so many different forms. Was it because Narada didn't have that?
That's a side issue. Not because Narada didn't have that. It was a side issue. He was satisfying those 16,000 queens. Their need, he fulfills the desires of everyone, and he agreed to marry all of them simultaneously. So he satisfied all of them perfectly, in a way that they didn't have to get jealous with one another, which is, it's inconceivable. Then Narada comes and sees that, and he can go out and just broadcast his glories. He knows, but it's, in the spiritual world, Narada has a spiritual body, first of all. He's not like us. we have this tendency to think of these things by analyzing them in a way that we can only see. But Narada has a spiritual body. He can accommodate this. He can accommodate knowing that Krishna's God, and at the same time having Krishna worship him. He can tolerate that. He can understand that this is for a higher purpose, you know. So, and he can be forgetful in a spiritual way. You know, we're forgetful in ignorance, but he's not in ignorance. But still, he's amazed because Krishna's potencies are unlimited, and he's limited. He's not Krishna. Only Krishna is unlimited, and all the rest of us are limited. So therefore, we actually see Krishna doing something like that. Then we become, our capacity becomes expanded, and our love and our affection and our amazement becomes expanded. And he's not from Goloka Vrindavan, so he has that mood, you know, to appreciate opulence and grandeur and, you know, mystic potency and things like that. But in Goloka Vrindavan, it's different. In Goloka Vrindavan, it's Krishna that gets afraid of the, you know, of Mother Yashoda, or, you know, lets the cowherd boys beat him in wrestling, or, you know, lets Radharani, you know, in a sulking mood, you know, get on his case, you know, correct him, you know. He likes that better than, you know, the Vedic hymns and all these, because he says in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that love made feeble by a sense of awe and reverence does not look very well to me, he said. He wants spontaneous love that is not clouded by any kind of reverence. But in another place, that's what devotee wants. He wants that. Some devotees need that, so he allows that, and he takes pleasure in that, because he's unlimited. He's the supreme enjoyer. So all those things play into the fact that that Krishna knows everything, and yet he, you know, he's asking Narada and talking to Narada like that. Is that clear?
Yes, thank you.
Hare Krishna.
There's so much to take on board.
Yeah. This is called consciousness expanding.
Yeah, it's far out.
The material world reduces our consciousness, and the spiritual energy expands our consciousness. And the soul, each of us has the capacity to know a lot more than we can imagine. And Krishna comes and shows that. And if you can develop a taste for hearing this, and faith, if you can hear this literature with faith, with love, and without argument, then you get to see Krishna. Through the pages, through the sound, you can be with Krishna. Not such an easy thing to do. And Krishna says, how do you get that? Bhaktya mam abhijanati. Only by unmotivated, pure devotional service. By doing what you're doing for his satisfaction only. And it works in such a way that when you do that, you think, not, well, what about him and her and me and everybody else? No, if you do that, then Krishna in the heart of everyone, he expands and he pleases everyone. If you can come to that stage.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Mukunda Das Adi Kari.
Hare Krishna. A couple of points. First, I just wanted to make. So, I guess I just wanted to see clarity on this point. So, we understand from chapter 64 of the 10th canto that Krishna has 16,108 palaces.
69.
Chapter 69. Did I say 68? 69, sorry.
I said 64.
Oh, did I really?
Mine looks like 4. Looks like more like 4 than 8.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So we understand from chapter 69 that Lord Sri Krishna has 16,108 palaces and 16,108 wives, and with each one of those wives, he has that unique, individual, simultaneous relationship with each. So there's no cause for envy or jealousy or a sense of feeling left out.
Well, sometimes that's there. Sometimes, like Satyabhama saw that Rukmini had a parijata flower tree in her, or got a flower or something, I don't know exactly. And then she says, well, wait a second, I want one of those. And Krishna says, okay. Then takes her, when he kills, the Demora demon in Bhaumasura, he takes her along, and then he did some mischief, and he stole the earrings of Aditi, the mother of the demigods. So then they went all the way to the heavenly planets to give the earring back. Shopping. Yeah, and then, and Krishna says, why do you just want a flower? Let me give you a whole tree. And he just took the tree and went, and Indra said, you can't do that. That tree doesn't belong in the earth. That belongs in heaven. You're disrupting the natural order of things. Krishna says, and he takes it anyway. And then Indra comes out and they have some kind of fight or some kind of tussle or something, just to please Satyabhama, like a henpecked husband. It's all there. There's nothing that you can see. Here's how Prabhupada, I just heard this 2 days ago, so it's clear in my mind. Somebody asked him about different things in the spiritual world. And Prabhupada said, everything that's in the spiritual world is in the material world. But there's no need for it. There's no necessity. Like there's the sun and the moon and all these things, but it's not needed. It's just there for the pleasure of all those living beings, including those who are acting like the sun or like those things. So the sun and the moon are there, the time things are there, daily life goes on, but there's no need. They don't need to eat. They eat, but they don't need to eat. Then somebody asks, yeah, but what happens to the food they eat? If it's a living being, and what happens? Prabhupada just laughed. He laughed. He said, well, you'll have to wait to see certain things when you have to wait till you get there, then you'll see what happens. Because we can't understand the spiritual world like that. One time somebody asked Prabhupada, well, why is Krishna blue? And Prabhupada said, why don't you ask him? Why don't you ask him? Oh, okay. Then they understand. You ask a stupid question, you get a stupid answer, Krishna he can be whatever color he likes. But that happens to be his original color, his original form, color. But it's not blue like that or this. It's not blue like that. You can't describe it. It's a different, the colors in the spiritual world are different. These are just dull, modes of nature. So then when we hear Krishna's pastimes, it opens us up to more possibilities. And then possibility, maybe we could be like that. Not that we could be Krishna, we're just trying to imitate Krishna here. But maybe, if we surrendered to Krishna and just served him with love, maybe we can find out about all those things and maybe we can taste it ourselves. Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't it be nice if we didn't have, if everything was new at every second? If every time you met someone, it was like you were meeting them for the first time. Even the same person, again and again, and it's like you're meeting them for the first time. No boredom, because there's no time and space. No need for three-dimensional printers. You can just go to a desire tree. Oh, can I have this? Sure, here it is. And then you can get it like that, But in order to be there and to get that, you have to be fully doing it for Krishna and for no other reason. And that's the facility you get when you surrender to Krishna completely. You don't lose your own freedom. You don't lose your own ability to do what you want to do. You get it. It's just the opposite of material consciousness, where we have to get something for me at the expense of anyone and everyone else. And it's just the opposite in the spiritual world. We want to give everything to Krishna, and we get everything. We get Krishna. Okay, tomorrow we have to get up and get to bed, and we have to get up and get ready to go and go on a plane and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to stop now with the permission of the sadhus. How you doing? Okay. I've been feeling it for a couple of years now, maybe more, but I'm particularly feeling it this trip. The burgeoning, as I call it, the burgeoning Kent Yatra. If you could live in this space and just be like this all the time, just see how nice that would be. So we have to build a community in which we can actually learn the art, of living like this and doing this all the time, and then be there for others who come and expand it. That's Lord Chaitanya's movement. Simple. Just to hear about Krishna, offer our food to Krishna, to chant his name, dance in ecstasy, worship his form. That's it. And it's so satisfying. There's no material reason that you can think of how it is that it can become so nice. All glories to Sri Krishna's palaces. All glories to all of Krishna's queens. By the way, by each one of them he had 10 kids, 10 sons, and 1 daughter. 16,108 times 10. And each one of them had 10. perfection of everything. Yes.
Oh my gosh, so does that mean if such a when Krishna when Krishna left this earth and then took everyone with him, like all the others with him, there was like millions and millions of people. If
Yes.
it's 16,000 times 100.
Times 100. No, times 10.
Or times 10,
16,000 times 10 times 10.
Yeah.
That's
Wow.
16 million. Or 100, what? Anyway, whatever it is. 160,000 suns. And 10 times that is 1.6 million.
That sounds like.
I mean, we got
100.
cities with more than 1 million people in them. And then why did he take them all back like that? Well, there's different reasons. But one of them was they were so powerful, and he didn't want them to, when he left, he didn't want them to be so proud and powerful that they'll be a burden on the earth, because he came to relieve the burden of the earth. And he brought every one of them to help do that. And another reason is he kind of removed the possibility that we can claim to have a blood relationship with him, so that we wouldn't become abusive. And it happens. In Bengal, there are descendants of Lord Nityananda who just are insufferable pride, because they think that they're the descendants of Lord Nityananda, and therefore everyone should just bow down to them just because of that. He's pretty tricky, Krishna. He doesn't forget anything.
No.
He's got it all figured out. Okay, we'll stop there. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Oh, thank you, all of you out there in cyberspace, for coming and being with us and enjoying this lovely Krishna Katha. Do we have anything from cyberspace? Okay. Thank you so much, and we will see you all. I don't know exactly when, because I'm going to come back and have this hip replacement surgery sometime. This summer sometime, before that I usually come, I think. Yeah, so stay tuned. Hare Krishna. I can't wait to see you again. Hare Krishna.
Wishing you safe travels.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. I'm sure everything's going to be okay. I'm feeling great relief. I got these injections in my hips, and I'm feeling 60-70%. That was about a week ago. I'm feeling 60-70%, and my sleep is more, because I'm finding out now that things that I was experiencing were from the pain at night, yeah.
These are cortisone injections, are they right?
Yeah. And also it's meant to isolate, because it's all connected together. It's very, your PhD in biology, she knows all these things. It's all connected together. Sometimes you'll have a pain up here, but it's actually caused by something else, because all of the nerves and muscles all connect together. And sometimes, what the kind of condition I have, it will do something to the legs, maybe not all the way down, but to a certain extent. And from the other side, from the back, it will cause something to happen down here. So it's part of the reason why Pundarik and Chakradari, who are my consultants, doctors, they told me all these things. If you do this, first do the pain relief of the injection, then we'll be able to tell more where things are coming from, and then we'll see, And so I asked him, I said, well, what percentage could you expect to improvement could you expect by the actual, replacement of the hip? And they said 90 plus. Only it doesn't just go away. It's not like the injection will go away. And it also depends. Some people, they can't bear the thought of operation, so they just keep taking the injections if it works enough with them. And I don't know what that's going to mean with me, how long it lasts, and they don't recommend that you do that too often. So if your system doesn't allow that, then you have to have it too often, and they'll recommend that you have the thing. So there's method in this, you know. I feel very protected, actually. Huh?
Did you say just one?
Both.
Both good places.
Yeah. Degenerative osteoarthritis in both hips, to the point where that the what do they call that? The round thing, the cusp, the ball and socket joint. It's disintegrated to the point wherever I move, it goes click clack clack, click clack clack, click clack clack. You know. But like I said, please don't lament from me, because it's not touching me. Honestly. I feel it, but it's not touching me. And that's the first step, and I'm feeling very, very lucky. And just if you do this, if you take this up and just do this every day, it will happen. Guaranteed. You'll get free from the body. And you can be in the body and you can do what you need to do, but you won't suffer from it in the same way. The suffering will go away eventually. The greatest gift that you can give anybody is a taste for spiritual happiness. Hare Krishna. Okay, that's it, folks. It's almost 8 o'clock. Thank you so much.
So in this case, you have Hare
Hare Krishna.